Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the noble triumphant coronation of Queen Anne, wife unto the most noble Henry VIII. Yes, we're partying like it's 1533. We've got a new queen. Nothing bad happened about the old queen. There's no controversy or issues going on. We have this lovely queen. And it's going to go great. I've got good feelings about this queen. I think it definitely a stare. So yes, we have the texts that we have for this particular bit of civic pageantry. We have two witnesses that we're going to be reading through today. There is some additional material that we may look at another time, but mostly I think that's in Latin, so I think we're probably not going to do that anytime soon. This is, as ever with civic pageantry, this gives us a certain amount of data, but it doesn't give us all the data, and it gives us data in often the wrong order and not in desperately helpful ways, so we're going to try and disentangle it. We're going to take our time. We've got plenty of time with the text that we have. So reading through the text today, bouncing around through the prose, as well as reading First Child for Thaleia and Venus, and I think Mercury as well, is...
I am Greg, and it's good to be back in civic pageantry.
Reading Second Child and Euphrosyne is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I will wrestle for first place.
Reading one of the ballads and also personifying Paris is...
Liza Graham, in London, doer of things.
Reading a poet, Juno, a couple of children is...
Hello, Angela from London, also historian. This is very early for me.
Reading. Well, to be fair, you've done a fair amount of medieval stuff, so in a sense, dancing around. We're testing, we're stretching you. That's what we're doing. We're stretching you. Don't want to be in the 17th century. Come back.
I'm channeling my inner Lucy.
Reading Pallas, the closing ballad, etc. is...
Hi, I'm Desna from Lancaster.
And reading some of the prose bits and pieces and just generally joining us is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast. I saw Anne Boleyn and wanted to get in.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be feverishly trying to decipher some notes from the records of early English drama, which very helpfully give us some of the first indicators of how this event comes about. So we're going to start on the 13th of May, before we start reading the document that everyone in the room has. And Henry writes a letter to get this gig off the road. So first, one of the items is, first at the same Common Council there was read the King's letter for the coronation of Queen Anne. Item at the same Common Council there was granted... I believe 1,050 masses to be given to the Queen at the time of her coronation. I've got, it says ML. I'm assuming that's 1,050, unless somebody else knows better. Item at the same Common Council that was granted towards the payment of the said masses and other charges to be spent in the city for the honour of the same against the said coronation, as a benevolence to be taken and levied of the inhabitants of the city by way and after the manner accustomed. Furthermore, it is agreed by the same Common Council that my lord the mayor and my masters the aldermen shall name and appoint all those persons that shall have the oversight of the bestowing of the said money, and also the 12 commoners that shall await upon the chief butler of England. So there's lots of little references that we have, little references to all sorts of things, generally towards not only this piece of civic pageantry, but also other Lord Mayor type city stuff that's going on. And some of them I'm not quite sure whether they're specifically for this or whether they're for something else. So on the 17th of May, there's an item that every hall of every mystery shall be assessed at a certain sum of money towards the payment of the benevolence now granted to the Queen's Grace for her coronation and for other charges of this city. So, yeah, there's a lot of detail about money that you get from these kinds of course. It's the nature of these things. There's a letter about expenses that pop up, and that seems to be something that's quite on everybody's mind. And yes, more references to how much money that might be paid for things that are going forward. So I may dig out another couple of little references from basically how much everything costs in a minute. But let's dive into this first document that we have here. This is a printed account of the event. There are two documents that we're going to be reading. One goes into sort of the background of everything that's going on, and another gives us some actual text of actual things that were performed. So without further ado, we're going to dive through the room, doing a paragraph at a time, and find out what happened a couple of days before the actual coronation itself. So we'll start with Greg, Eric, Liza, and then Angela, Desna, and Rachael, if we get that far in this little chunket, which we might not. So starting with Greg, tell us what happened first.
First, the 29th day of May, being Thursday, all the worshipful crafts and occupations in their best array, goodly beseen, took their barges, which were splayed with goodly banners fresh and new, with the cognizance and arms of their faculty, to the number of 50 great barges, comely be seen, and every barge had minstrels making great and sweet harmony.
Also, there was the bachelor's barge, comely beseen, decked with innumerable banners and all about hanged with rich cloth of gold, and foists waiting upon her, decked with a great shot of ordnance, which descended the river afore all the barges. The bachelor's barge foremost, and so following in good order, every craft did their degree in order till they came to Greenwich, and there tarried, abiding the Queen's grace, which was a wonderful and goodly sight to behold.
Then at 3 o'clock the Queen's Grace came to her barge, and incontinent all the citizens with that goodly company set forth towards London in good array, as is before said. And to write what number of gunshots, what with chambers and great pieces of ordnance were shot off as she passed by in divers places, and especially at Ratcliffe and at Limehouse out of certain ships, it passeth my memory to write, or to tell the number of them. And so the Queen's Grace, being in her rich barge among her nobles, the citizens accompanied her to London unto the Tower Wharf.
Also, ere she came near the tower, there were shot off innumerable pieces of ordnance, as ever there was there by any men's remembrances, where the king received her grace with a noble loving countenance, and so gave thanks and praise to all the citizens for all their great kindness and loving labour and pains taken in that behalf, to the great joy and comfort of all the citizens.
Also to behold the wonderful number of people that ever was seen, that stood on the shore on both sides of the river. It was never seen in one sight out of the city of London. What in goodly lodgings and houses that be on the riverside between Greenwich and London, it passeth all men's judgments to esteem the infinite number of them, wherein her grace with all her ladies rejoiced much.
And there we'll just briefly pause before we go back, before we go forward, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of barges. There's a lot of gunfire. Well, cannon fire. And this is something we've noted in civic pageantry in the future, and possibly even in the past, of this kind of thing. Lots of lovely barges, lots of banging sights, and it passeth my memory to write or tell the number of them. The author of this particular text is so overwhelmed by how much there was. The citizens were all great kindness and loving labour and pains and great joy and all the happiness that there was. Thoughts in the room about what's gone on a couple of days before the main event? Liza.
Well, to my understanding, there are two things you do when it's a major celebration. You light stuff on fire, or you make stuff explode. And we've had a lot of very nice explosions here. We've had the number of guns in a salute indicates how greatly the person being saluted is esteemed. So you have basically everyone with a gun that can firing it, including from ships, which must have been super fun. And so, yes, lots of explosions. But, if I'm reading this right, she embarks from the Tower Wharf, which is kind of, if that's so, is kind of a piece of foreshadowing there. Poor old Anne.
Yes, history's irony meter will possibly. I mean, we've had when we went earlier and we're doing sort of stuff from the reign of Henry VI and that sort of orbit. The irony meter was off the chart at times with people, predicting such wonderful things for people. So I suspect we may have a little bit more of that. History's a cruel beast. We all start off with happy thoughts and hopes. And barges, obviously. We all start off with barges. 50! Number 50 great barges, as mentioned there. The Bachelor's Barge. I'm not sure what the Bachelor's specifically refers to. Is that... It's not a... One of the livery companies off the top of my head. So I'm not
Is
sure.
it an academic thing? Oh. Well, I was going to say, is that an academic thing, bachelors?
No.
I think it might be the king's barge, the bridegroom's barge. Could it be?
Yeah, that would make sense because yes, this is obviously very much on top of that element, isn't it? Yes. Which would make sense because it's hanged with rich cloth of gold. That would make a lot of sense. Okay. Question mark, but we have a theory. Eric, then Rachael.
I seem to remember we read a text several months ago, that maybe even a year ago, I don't know, that was basically sort of the equivalent, but for a king's entrance to London. I don't know which king of all. I think it was either Henry V or VI or I don't know, one of the Henrys. There's loads of them, or fourth, I don't know. And I seem to remember that was sort of like glorious wine fountains and fruits and all that stuff. And this doesn't really compare, does it? I mean, it's just like a cruise down the Thames.
To be fair, it's not the day itself. This is 2 days before the actual coronation. This is sort of
true. Yeah.
This is they're moving. They're going to the hotel ready for the actual event. Everybody's congregating and getting ready for the big day. Current Lord Mayor of London is Stephen Peacock. He's a haberdasher. I don't know if that's relevant, but just thought I'd throw that in there. Rachael, you're next.
I was just going to say that they're on boats. It's like they're literally embarking on a new chapter of their lives together. I don't know. I think there's a little subtlety there that might be intentional for this ceremony on their part.
And yeah, the number of people that was there was wonderful, apparently. The number of people who stood on the shore on both sides of the river, outside of the city of London itself, the number of people there was a bit more on the sticks was quite impressive. So yeah, good turnout. And the hotels were full. All the hotels were full. You just couldn't, if you hadn't booked ahead, you were doomed. I mean, even Airbnb wouldn't get you out of this one. So, Rachael, could you read the next little chunkette, including the names? So this is weirdly telling us about something that happened a few days, 4 days prior to what we've just read. So, for some reason, this little bit is going to tell us something that happened a little bit earlier.
And the Sunday before this.
No, sorry. The bit in italics as well, please.
All right. Knights made at Greenwich the Sunday before Whit Sunday, and the Sunday before this triumph, being the 25th day of May, the king made at his manor of Greenwich all these knights: Sir Christopher Danby, Sir Thomas Boteler, Sir Christopher Highlard, Sir William Walgrave, Sir Brian Hastings, Sir William Fielding, Sir Thomas Metham.
So, for no readily apparent reason, this text is telling us this out of order. But yes, there are some knights being made prior to this particular bit of festivities. I, off the top of my head, do not recognise any of those names. I don't know if anyone in the room does, or if they have any particular significance. If you're watching this video and you have data on this, by all means, bang us some information in the comments section, and throw some thoughts this way. I say this is just us sort of bimbling our way through a text, trying to figure out what it's actually doing. So yeah, some people got lucky with their knighting over these festivities. So we're going to read on, and Greg, you have the joy of the next little sequence, another list of names. If you could read from the italics down to the end of the list, that first list of names, that would be lovely.
Friday were made knights of the Bath 19, whose names followeth. Also on Friday the 30th day of May, the king created and made in the Tower of London 19 noblemen knights of the Bath, whose names follow: the Lord Marquis Dorset, the Earl of Derby, the Lord Clifford, son and heir to the Earl of Cumberland, the Lord Fitzwalter, son and heir to the Earl of Sussex, the Lord Hastings, son and heir to the Earl of Huntingdon, the Lord Berkeley, the Lord Monteagle, the Lord Vaux, Sir Henry Parker, son and heir to the Lord Morley, Sir William Windsor, son and heir to the Lord Windsor, Sir John Mordaunt, son and heir to the Lord Mordaunt, Sir Francis Weston, Sir Thomas Arundel, Sir John Huddleston, Sir Thomas Pollings, Sir Henry Savile, Sir George Fitzwilliam of Lincolnshire, Sir John Tyndall, and Sir Thomas Jeremy. Two of those ring bells.
In a sense, a lot of the familial names all ring bells.
Weston was heavily involved with the later problem, wasn't he, with Anne? I've got a feeling off the top of my head, but yeah.
So we've managed to move ahead to Friday. We started on a Thursday, and yeah, we're now on Friday the 30th day, and the king is making some noblemen knights of the Bath. That's nice. A lot of this, sort of New Year's honours list type stuff, isn't it? It's that kind of thing. We're not really getting to any meat yet, so there's not really much to discuss. Any thoughts in the room before we get into some meat, which we will do in a minute, because I'm going to skip through some of the next bit to save you the pain. Rachael.
If you were ever splicing like a show together, like how in the past we've talked about these schoolroom shows or things like that put together or something, I think just reading from this list of names is actually really funny for some reason, just because I don't know who any of them are. If you just kept going, I don't know what kind of show you'd put this in, but I think there's, I don't know, something interesting about it.
So, we were on Friday the 30th of May. Then we go to the Saturday. We can assume that the 31st, the last day of May, the king made those Knights of the Sword in the Tower of London, whose names follow. And there's an incredibly long list of names that we won't read out now, because it's about twice as long as the last one, and life's too short. But that's on the Saturday. But there's more on the Sunday after Whit Sunday, being Trinity Sunday, and the 8th day of June. So we're really dancing around with some of these honours stuff. He made more knights following: Sir Geoffrey Corwen, Sir John Dorn, Sir Geoffrey Middleton, etc. So it does seem around about this celebration, the morning of the actual coronation, and then a week later, There's a lot of honours going on. There's a lot of them passing around. Nobody has any additional thoughts on that, which is fine, because now we're actually going to get to some detail. So, we're going to get to the Saturday and we're going to find out some stuff. So, we'll go paragraph by paragraph. Eric, if you could take us away, then Liza, then Angela, then Desna, then Rachael, then back round to Greg, and we'll go around for a little bit and see what we get. So, there's a bit of gravel to buy. I don't know how much the gravel cost. I don't think I found a costing for it, but I'll have another look while you're reading that. Eric.
Also, all the pavements of the city, from Charing Cross to the Tower, were covered over and cast with gravel. And the same Saturday, being Whitsun Eve, the mayor with all the aldermen and the crafts of the city prepared array in good order to stand and receive her grace, and with rails for every craft to stand and lean from the press of people. The mayor met the Queen's grace at her coming forth of the Tower, and all his brethren and aldermen standing in cheap. And upon the same Saturday, the Queen came forth from the Tower towards Westminster in goodly array, as hereafter followeth.
And Liza.
She passed the streets first with certain strangers, their horses trapped with blue silk, and themselves in blue velvet with white feathers, accompanied 2 and 2. Likewise squires, knights, barons, and baronets, knights of the Bath, clothed in violet garments, edged with ermine, like judges. Then, following the judges of the law, and abbots. All these estates were to the number of 200 couple and more, 2 and 2, accompanied.
And then followed bishops, 2 and 2, and the archbishops of York and Canterbury, the ambassadors of France and Venice, the Lord Mayor with a mace, Master Garter, the King of Heralds, and the King's coat of armour upon him, with the officers of arms appointing every estate in their degree.
Then followed 2 ancient knights with old-fashioned hats powdered on their heads, disguised, who did represent the Dukes of Normandy and of Guienne, after an old custom. The Lord Constable of England, for the time being the Duke of Suffolk, the Lord William Howard, the Deputy for the time to the Lord Marshal, the Duke of Norfolk. Then followed the Queen's Grace in her litter, costly and richly beseen, with a rich canopy over her, which was borne by the Lords of the Five Ports. After her, following the master of her horse with a spare white palfrey richly appointed and led in his hand.
Then followed her noble ladies of estate, richly clothed in crimson powdered with ermines, to the number of 12. Then the master of the guard, with the guard on both sides of the street in good array, and all the constables well beseen in velvet and damask coats, with white staves in their hands, setting every man in array and order in the streets until she came to Westminster.
Then followed 4 chariots with ladies of honour. After them followed 30 ladies and gentlewomen richly garnished, and so the serving men after them. And as she was departed from the Tower, a marvellously great shot of guns was there fired and shot off.
So, yes, the Queen has left the Tower to a great shot of guns. I do love the phrasing. I know it's not fair, but, you know, the gentlewomen are richly garnished, and there are serving men, so I don't know if they're carving them up later. Now, there are contradictory accounts as to when they left. They either left at 10 a.m. or 5 p.m. 3 hours late. So quite a span in the potential leaving of the thing. I mean, if Henry's busy knighting people in the morning, maybe they were late. I don't know, but there is contradictory data on that apparently. But yeah, there's special seats for anyone who's part of a livery company. There's special seat, railing to cut them off from the press of the hoi polloi. So yeah, interesting stuff. Eric.
I think we had that in If You Know Not Me when they're setting up one of the pageants. It's like, yes, go set up all the railings and to tell them to empty the streets and do this and do that. And you're like, There's not enough stage space for this, but obviously this is not a problem, like, in the actual city.
Yeah, so lots of witnesses to that. Yeah, the mayor meets the queen, and she's got quite a lot of detail as to she's horses trapped with blue silk of the strangers. Yeah, lots of interesting details. I'm quite interested in the two ancient knights with old-fashioned hats. What's going on there?
I was going to ask about the old-fashioned hats. I wonder if he means tournament helmets.
Who knows? I don't know.
Can I ask a quick question? So is it, because I've not read one of these before, is all the detail about the colours and the fabrics and so on, is that usual in the pageants? Right, okay.
Yeah, because I mean this is an account of it, so they want to give you a picture of what's going on, but also there's a lot of symbolicness to what the finery that people are wearing, and the colour that you're wearing is really important.
Yeah. So are there sumptuary laws at this time as well? So is that an extra layer? Right. Okay. Got it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. There will be controls to a degree. I mean, they're always constantly trying to control this kind of stuff. It will get worse towards the end of the century. Nobody could really control any the kind of clothes that people are wearing. So, Queen's Grace in her litter, costly and richly beseen, borne by the lords of the Cinque Ports. Master of a horse with a spare white palfrey, just in case, presumably. And again, also numbers, an emphasis on numbers. Ladies of estate to the number of 12, and I don't know whether there are specific references to why those numbers come in. Eric.
I can't help but wonder what all these people used to do, because the lords of the 5 ports and the Lord Marshal, Lord Constable, you can kind of infer what that means. But then yeah, it just kind of, it's interesting in terms of, just everyone had a title so that they weren't discontented with it, which feels very modern actually. But I mean, yeah. Maybe that's just me.
The Cinque Ports were very important, defensively, and I don't know how much actually the being in charge of them actually required actual work, or whether the title. I would have thought in this days it was actually a genuine responsibility. But again, not my job to know these things. Let's see what the internet throws out at us later. Okay, we're moving towards some vague outline description of some actual pageantry. Though there may not be that much detail in that. Eric, if you will tell us, as I think we're heading to Fenchurch next. So let's see what happens next.
So this most noble company passed till her grace came to Fenchurch, where was a pageant fair and seemly, with certain children who saluted her grace with great honour and praise after a goodly fashion. And so passed forth to Grace Church, where was a right costly pageant of Apollo, with the 9 muses among the mountains, sitting on the Mount of Parnassus, and every of them having their instruments and apparel according to the description of poets, and namely of Virgil, with many goodly verses to her great praise and honour.
So far in this text, that's 2 pageants have passed, and that's all the data that this text is giving us at this point. There may be more data coming up later. So we've got pageant number 1 at Fenchurch. We've got children performing, which is usual for this kind of thing, who were quite good. That's basically all they give us. Grace Church, however, the pageant there, it's right costly pageant. It costs the earth, with Apollo and the 9 muses sitting on the Mount of Parnassus. So we've got a mountain. We've got Mount of Parnassus. We've got the 9 muses. We've got Apollo. We've been here before. Other 9 muses are available. We've done some musing in the past. or in fact, coming up in the future for something that was in the past, or might be in the future. There's definitely a 9 Muses we haven't done yet. We've done one in the past, I'm sure, but there's another one to come. I make these promises to excite you. So yeah, they have instruments, so presumably there's singing. There's Virgil. There's goodly verses of praise and honour. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. Liza, take us to Gracechurch Street, please.
And so she passed forth through Gracious Street unto Leadenhall, where was built a sumptuous and costly pageant in the manner of a castle, wherein was fashioned a heavenly roof, and under it upon a green was a root or a stalk, whereout sprang a multitude of white and red roses curiously wrought. So from the heavenly roof descended a white falcon, and lighted upon the said stalk and root, and incontinent descended an angel with goodly harmony, having a close crown between his hands, and set it on the falcon's head. And on that said floor sat Saint Anne in the highest place, and on that one side her progeny, with scripture, that is to wit the 3 Marys, with their issue, that is to understand Mary the mother of Christ, Mary Salome the mother of Zebedee, with the 2 children of them, also Mary Cleophas with her husband Alphaeus, and their 4 children on the other side, with other poetical verses said and sung, and with a ballad in English to her great praise and honour, and to all her progeny also.
So we get another one. We've got details of White Falcon. We will encounter some of this text later on. So this isn't. There's definitely more of that to come. I'm fairly certain there's an error there. Mary Salome, I think, is wife of Zebedee. I don't think is actually the mother of. Yeah, it's there's that element there. I think there's something wrong there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm fairly certain there's something weird. Yeah, and there's Saint Anne with scripture and things, and an angel. Red and white roses, bit of Tudor signification going on there, and it's all there's a castle. So we've got a mountain, we've got a castle. Anyone playing civic pageantry bingo, you can tick those off so far. We have had the Muses, so you can tick that off as well. Apollo. We haven't had an animal yet, have we? Have we had any animals? That's always disappointing.
No, White Falcon.
White Falcon. Sorry. Have we had a White Falcon before? Don't think so. Anyway, Angela, you were waving.
Well, I was just going to ask: is the falcon part of Anne's heraldry?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Of which I do not know the answer, but it's an excellent suggestion. I would assume, like everything in this pageant, has some sort of significance on that level. So that's fun. Someone Google that. I'm sure that'll be on the internet.
Yeah, it is. It is. I've just looked. She's got a Vulcan crest.
Is it her family's crest or a personal device?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's family.
And of course we got Saint Anne as well, just to draw the parallels there. Anne, Saint Anne, obviously.
Yes, Saint Anne, who had a lot of children. Very important for a queen.
Absolutely. Yes, with their 4
children. But they're all girls, foreshadowing.
They don't know that yet. So yeah, third pageant down, and we've got, let's say, a bit more detail on that one. Starting to get a picture of this. We've certainly got a route map, which is relatively clear for this one as well. I haven't got a prepared route map for this in the way I have for civic pageantry, like Lord Mayor shows, so I apologise on that front. Rachael.
I'm on the same site that Angela's on, and it even says something about the stump in those roses, that the roses coming out are her curing his barrenness and giving him children.
Ooh, nice. Okay. Next up is Angela, and well, I'll see. Hopefully, we'll keep going a little more with Desna and Rachael, etc. But we'll see how far we get before I pause you.
And so she passed forth from thence through Cornhill, and at the conduit was a sumptuous pageant of the three graces. At the coming of the Queen's grace, a poet declared the nature of all those three ladies, and gave high praises unto the Queen. And after this preamble finished, each lady in particular spake great honour and high praise of the Queen's grace.
Queen's grace there. Three graces, Queen's grace. There's a poet. We may hear more from the poet later. Each lady in particular spake great honour. So, bit of demonstration there to say how graceful she is, full of graces. That's pageant number 4 in my ongoing count. Sumptuous pageant, that's all we've got. Does we get any visual indication apart from graces, anything going on there? I didn't pick up anything. Okay, Desna, take us forward. Read the next 2 little paragraphs, please.
And so she passed forth with all her nobles till she came in cheap. And at the great conduit was made a costly fountain, where outran white wine, claret, and red wine in great plenty, all that afternoon. And there was great melody with speeches. And so passed forth through cheap to the standard, which was costly and sumptuously garnished with gold and azure, with arms and stories, where was great harmony and melody.
And Rachael, pick up the cudgels.
And so passed she forth by the cross and cheap, which was new garnished, and so through cheap towards the lesser conduit. And in the midway between, the recorder of London received her before the alderman, with great reverence and honour saluting her grace, with a loving and humble proposition, presenting her grace with a rich and costly purse of gold, and in it 1,000 marks in gold coin, given unto her as a free gift of honour, to whom she gave great thanks both with heart and mind.
And Greg.
And so Grace passed a little further, and at the lesser conduit was a costly and rich pageant, whereat was goodly harmony of music, and at the minstrels with singing. And within that pageant were 5 costly seats, wherein were set these 5 personages, that is to wit, Juno, Pallas, Mercury, Venus, and Paris, who, having a ball of gold, presented it to her grace with certain verses of great honour, and children singing a ballad to her grace, and praise to all her ladies.
Okay, so I think we've disentangled finally the note that I read out earlier when I was going, what on earth is going on with the 1,050? It's not 1,050, it's 1,000 marks. It's the bribe. It's not a bribe. It's the present, the mandated present that you have to hand over. So it wasn't a mass. It was just money, which is excellent. I always love to demonstrate my ignorance in a real time fashion. So yes, we're walking along Cheapside. We know this route very well from our Lord Mayor showing. We're working the opposite direction to the Lord Mayor shows. We're working our way towards St Paul's, and we are mostly having song, speeches, nice speeches along most of that until we got to the lesser conduit, where there was another pageant with 5 costly seats and various personages, Juno, Pallas, Mercury, Venus, etc., which you will hear about later on, because we do have some text for that, which is nice. But yeah, lots of wine. Eric, you were complaining earlier there wasn't any wine. Wines are flowing.
More wine. No, yeah, sorry. I do wish we had wine, but I mean, not for the purposes of this exercise, but yeah, generally it would be.
Yeah, great conduit, a costly fountain with white wine, claret, and red wine. So No rosé, though. Angela.
There are two things here that get me very excited. One is the conduit flowing with wine, which is a thing that happens every time, and people fill their hats and carry it off. And then the other thing is the purse that she's given, because she's given a gold purse. So this is a purse that's kind of like made of gold tissue of some sort, some material. And I mean, I do wonder, does it still exist? It's possible that it did, because they were incredibly valuable.
It is possible. It is possible.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, it is. I did have a little look about. I know that it's not the V&A, that I know. But it could be in the Pallas collection.
Yes, it would be, in one of the royal collections, if it still exists. I do have a friend I could ask who's a textile conservation scientist who specializes in metallic fabrics. He might know of it. But yeah, cloth of gold was amazing and incredibly hard to manufacture. Assuming it was the real thing, each silk thread would be surrounded by a spiral of a very, very thin ribbon of beaten gold. So even a small thing like a purse would take quite a lot of workmanship to even make the thread before you wove it. Lots of gold everywhere.
Mm. And yeah, we've got this pageant where there are 5 costly seats. 5 seats. Or that's all the visual data we really get there. We have a ball of gold presented to Her Grace. So there's a ball of gold as well as a purse of gold. So I say there'll be more data on that a little later on. Who read last? Who read last? I've forgotten. I've lost track. Who read the bit about Mercury, Venus, etc.? I'm going to go round to the top then, because literally nobody seems to remember.
It was Desna.
It was Desna last, right? So it's Rachael next. Thank you. Excellent. Good going mad. Right. So Rachael and then Greg are going to read this little bit on, because it's there's quite a lot of data to take in, so we'll just take it paragraph by paragraph and just keep going around the room. So Rachael, and so they passed forth to Paul's Gate, please.
I thought it was Angela that just read the last bit. Isn't it Desna? Desna?
No, it's just move on, Rachael.
All
just
right.
move on.
And so passed forth to Paul's Gate, where was a proper and sumptuous pageant, that is to wit, there sat 3 fair ladies, virgins, costly arrayed, with a fair round throne over their heads, whereabout was written, Regina Anna Prospera, Procede et Reina, that is in English, Queen Anne prosper, proceed and reign.
Then the lady that sat in the midst, having a table of gold in her hand, written with letters of azure, Veni Anica Coronavirus, come my love, thou shalt be crowned. And 2 angels having a closed crown of gold between their hands, and the lady on the right hand had a silver table of silver on was written, Domine, dirige gressos meos. Lord God, direct my ways.
The other on the left hand had in another table of silver written this, Confide in Domino, trust in God. And under their feet was a long roll wherein was written this, Regina Anna novum regis de sanguine natum, cum paries populis aurea the secula tuis. Queen Anne, when thou shalt bear a new son of the king's blood, there shall be a golden world unto thy people. And so the ladies cast over her head a multitude of wafers with rose leaves, and about the wafers were written with letters of gold this poesy. Poesy, perhaps?
There is no posy. There's supposed to be a posy at this point in the text. There isn't one. Liza.
No posy. And so Her Grace passed forth into St. Paul's churchyard, and at the east end of the church, against the school, was a great scaffold, wherein stood the number of 200 children, well beseen, who received her with poets' verses to her noble honour. When they had finished, she said, Amen, with a joyful smiling countenance.
And so passed forth through the long churchyard, and so to Lud Gate, which was costly and sumptuously garnished with gold, colours, and azure, with sweet harmony of ballads to her great praise and honour, and divers sweet instruments.
And thus her Grace came through the city with great honour and royalty, and passed through Fleet Street till she came to the Standard and Conduit, where was made a fair tower with 4 turrets with vanes. There within was a great plenty of sweet instruments with children singing. The Standard, which was of mason-work, costly made with images and angels, costly gilt with gold and azure, with other colours and divers sorts of arms costly set out, shall there continue and remain. And within the Standard a vice with a chime. And there ran out of certain small pipes great plenty of wine all that afternoon.
And so her Grace passed through the city to Temple Bar, and so to Charing Cross, and so through Westminster into Westminster Hall, that was well and richly hanged with cloth of arras, with a marvellous rich cupboard of plate, and there was a void of spice plates and wine. And that done, the Queen's Grace withdrew her into the White Hall for that night, and so to York Place by water.
And there we'll pause, as that's the end of the day. We've got a couple of pageants, or I mean, sometimes it's quite difficult to define what we mean by pageants as well here. 200 children doesn't seem to get referenced as a pageant, but it seems like that's quite a production number. I mean, they may be just lining the streets, but that's there. It got a great scaffold, so
yeah, the children are on a scaffold, which I think is like rostra.
Yeah. Well, scaffold is one of those slippery terms.
Well, yes, you can build just about anything. A scaffold can be a stage, can be a pageant stage, can be
execution platform.
That too.
Yeah, that's one. So, you get that in plays a lot.
Here we've got a deviation from the standard pageant route. They go to the Standard, they go to the Conduit, but then they go on to Westminster. Or is that a deviation, Rob?
It's fundamentally different from a Lord Mayor's show, which is going in different direction and doing different things. So it happens to have gone via Cheapside, but they're going through the whole city and doing all the way from east to west. So in that sense, it's not. I can't remember the previous royal entries we've done whether there is a specific royal entry route. Or not. Yeah,
so they go to Westminster, and Westminster is richly hanged with cloth of arras. There, which Arras in France is a famous place for the weaving of tapestries. So I'm guessing maybe the cloths are figured, or maybe it's just silk, or maybe with some gold in it to give back the light. There's certainly some tapestries with cloth of gold in them at Hampton Court. So anyway. So we've got that, and there's a marvelous rich cupboard of plate. So in Westminster Hall, they've got like wonderful silver, maybe gilt plate accoutrements set out. And then I don't know what the next bit is. There was a void of spice plates and wine. What kind of void are we talking about here that contains spice plates and wine?
I don't know. Special area. Maybe for spice plates and wine, in the sense that it was clear of other stuff. I mean, we had the earlier pageant as well, where we had all the Latin tags. So over the top of this thing at Paul's Gate, saying, "Go Queen," and then you got 3 figures. You've got one in the middle with a motto, one to the left, one to the right, a couple of angels hanging around. And I say various poses, and the Queen then gets to go to listen to the children singing, and we get a quote from the Queen. She says "Amen." I mean, I bet everyone remembered that. I mean, that was quite a moment. I'm sure she was very impressed. I'm sure they were lovely. So yeah. Whereas pass through Fleet Street, there's a tower with 4 turrets with vanes, sweet instruments, children singing. Yeah, there's all sorts of little adjuncts to things that I'm quite curious about how they all function. And of course, the pipes releasing wine. Angela.
I'm just really interested how normally with the pageant you leave the Lord Mayor's pageant. You leave the Lord Mayor outside. Bye, you say, and he goes into his building. And of course here we go with her into the building. There's the great, impressive display of riches, of plate, and so on. And then she withdraws further into Whitehall. And it's really amazing to see these buildings, most of which then have changed, even within 50 years, these have changed so much. So it's kind of, you really see how it was all supposed to go together here. But if you were constructing this, then that's quite difficult. You've got to walk into a building, which you don't have to do with the Lord Mayor's pageants. So it offers a bit of a challenge.
Well, I mean, at the swearing in for the Lord Mayor's show, I think in 1585 at Westminster, the eyewitness account basically went, couldn't see anything, so I left. So even in a massive space like that, it's just the throng of the crowd and the people, couldn't see a thing, so I left early. Too long, didn't read. Anyway, we have a little more data about what happens following this. We're going into the following day, and we'll read on from this. I can't remember again where we left off. Who read last? Someone have a memory?
It wasn't me that read last this time.
Rachael, you read last, did you? Okay, Greg, take us away for Sunday.
The Sunday in the morning at 8 o'clock, the Queen's Grace with noble ladies in their robes of estate, assembled with all the nobles apparelled in Parliament robes, as dukes, earls, archbishops and bishops, with barons and the barons of the 5 ports, with the mayor of the city and the aldermen in their robes as mantles of scarlet.
The barons of the 5 ports bear a rich canopy of cloth of gold, with staves of gold and 4 bells of silver and gilt. The abbot of Westminster with his brigals came into the Holy Pontificabulus with his monks in their best copes. The members of the King's Chapel in their best copes, with the bishops richly adorned in Pontificabulus.
And the blue array cloth spread from the high dosses of the King's Bench unto the high altar of Westminster.
Oh, carry on. That was really short, Liza.
And so every man proceeding to the minster in the best order, every man after his degree appointed to his order and office as appertaineth, came unto the place appointed, where her grace received her crown, with all the ceremonies thereof as thereunto belongeth. And so all ceremonies done with the solemn mass, they departed home in their best orders, every man to the hall of Westminster, where the Queen's great grace withdrew for a time into her chamber appointed.
And so, after a certain space, her grace came into the hall. Then ye should have seen every nobleman doing their service to them appointed in the best manner that hath been seen in any such ceremony.
The Queen's Grace washed. The Archbishop of Canterbury said grace. Then the nobles were set to the table. Therewith came the Queen's service with the service of the Archbishop. A certain space, 3 men with the Queen's Grace service.
Before the said service came the Duke of Suffolk, High Constable that day and steward of the feast, on horseback, and marvellously trapped in apparel with richesse. Then with him came the Lord William Howard, as deputy to the Duke of Norfolk, in the room of the Marshal of England on horseback.
And we've got the Earl of Essex Carver, the Earl of Sussex Sewer, the Earl of Derby Cupbearer, the Earl of Arundel Butler, the Viscount Lisle, Panterer, Lord Bray Almoner, apparently. Greg.
These noblemen did their service in such humble sort and fashion, as it was a wonder to see the pain and diligence of them, being such noble personages.
The service borne by knights, which were to me too long to tell in order, the goodly service of kinds meet with their devices from the highest unto the lowest. There have not been seen a more goodly nor more honorably done in no man's days.
Liza.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm lost.
There were 4 tables.
There were 4 tables in the great hall along the said hall, the noblewomen at one table, sitting all on that one side, the noblemen another table, the mayor of London another table with his brethren, the barons of the ports with the master of the chancery, the 4th table. And thus, all things nobly and triumphantly done at her coronation, her grace returned to Whitehall with great joy and solemnity.
And on the morrow there were great jousts at the tilt done by 18 lords and knights, where were broken many spears valiantly, and some of their horses would not come at their pleasure near unto the tilt, which was displeasure to some that there did run.
And thus endeth this triumph. So, yeah, sort of the following on bits and bobs, you know, the additional fun of games. Yeah, some tilts broke, their spears were broken valiantly. Some of them, horses said no. Horses said no there, last minute. That made them a bit unhappy.
When it's the coronation, but your horse just won't cooperate.
You're suggesting it's code.
Well, it's not a good omen, is it?
No.
It doesn't get. It's kind of interesting, and what a strange way to finish on that really negative line.
Yeah, it is really weird, isn't it? Which you could have ended. And thus all things nobly and triumphantly done at her coronation, her grace returned to Whitehall with great joy and solemnity. That's quite a good closer, isn't it?
Well, it is, but on the other hand, if anyone was there, they'd be like, they didn't write down the part about the horses.
Yeah.
Because it's probably quite memorable. You're expecting to see a joust, and the horse is just like, nope. And really, to be fair, if you're jousting, the horse does have to be specially trained, and I don't think there was a lot of jousting done at this time. It was more of a sort of display thing. I think
No. There's jousts.
There's jousts?
Yes. I had a student working on this. Definitely.
Well,
they don't
maybe
stop until the 17th century. Then they stopped sort of like a little bit early.
Maybe for extra fanciness, they perhaps they hung the lists with some kind of fabric that flapped in the wind and scared the horses. I mean,
but Henry VIII was well known as a tremendous jouster himself.
To a degree,
he was, wasn't he? There were jousts
tried
at the
to get
field
his
of
son doing it when he
at the
was
field
younger.
of cloth of gold, weren't there? There were jousts.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm talking bollocks. Angela's right.
Yes, and Henry gets quite a bit of an injury from some jousting as well. So it's quite it does affect his reign quite importantly, actually. So yeah, it's sort of that day after the festivities. You get a religious service, you get some food, you get some jousting. It's good weekend, long weekend. But good. Some good stuff there. Okay, we have done the preliminary stuff. As ever with this kind of thing, you get these long descriptions, and then somewhere else, someone will actually tell you what people actually said. They don't say what they actually said with a description of what was happening. No. This is an entirely separate document. So, or a latter part of this printing. I don't think it's Very helpful. So yeah, here we have the some of the English verses and ditties, not the Latin stuff, at the coronation procession of Queen Anne Boleyn, and this is stuff by Nicholas Udall. Nicholas Udall, playwright, very good playwright actually from this period, slightly earlier, slightly later. His plays will be sort of up here. There's quite a few of them. Some of them are attributed, but I think they're all pretty decent shouts that they're all by Nicholas Udall. I can recommend Jack Juggler, which we've done a full cast audio adaptation on the podcast, and I can recommend Thersites, which we've done quite a nice thing on the YouTube channel, which is quite performy, complete with a snail fight, and that's someone fighting a snail, not two snails fighting. So yeah, can definitely recommend his writing, even if all sorts of interesting questions about his own life could be had. Anyway, I'm going to read I'm not going to read the descriptions. Rachael is going to read the prose stuff in between parts. And everybody else is going to read the parts that they have been assigned, because we have actually assigned those parts, for almost like it was useful. So this is, I guess, because this is Pageant Progeny of St. Anne's. So yes, so this is Pageant number 3 from earlier. This is Grace Church Street under Leadenhall. This is the castle, with the red and white roses, and the white falcon will appear, and there will be there is around this St. Anne and the various Marys about them, and of course children. So we'll see what this text now delivers to us. We're going to have a first child, a second child, and then there's going to be a falcon. Rachael, if you could read the description, and we'll see what else comes up.
At the pageant representing the progeny of St. Anne, exhibited at Cornhill, besides Leadenhall, were pronounced unto the Queen's grace these words following, by a child.
Most excellent Queen and bounteous lady, here now to see your gracious goodness with such honouring entering this city. What joy we take, what hearty gladness no pen may write, nor any tongue express. For of you depend the sure felicity and hope both of us and our prosperity. For like as from this devout St. Anne issued this holy generation, first Christ to redeem the soul of man, then James the Apostle and the Evangelist John, with these others, which in such fashion by teaching and good life, our faith confirmed that from that time yet too it hath not failed. Right so, dear lady, our Queen most excellent, highly endued with all gifts of grace, as by your living is well apparent. We, the citizens, by you in short space, hope such issue and descent to purchase, whereby the same faith shall be defended and this city from all dangers preserved. Which time that we may shortly see to our great comfort, joy, and solace. Grant the most high and blessed Trinity, most humbly beseeching your noble grace, our rude simpleness showed in this place to pardon, and the brief time considering to esteem our good minds and not the thing.
This spoken, opened a cloud, and let down a white falcon, in the descending of which was pronounced, as followeth, by another child.
Behold, and see the falcon white, how she beginneth their wings to spread, and for our comfort to take her flight. But where will she cease, as you do read? A rare sight, and yet to be joyed on the rose, chief flower that ever was this bird to light, while all birds doth pass.
Then out of the same cloud descended an angel, and crowned the same falcon with a crown imperial, at which doing was pronounced as followeth by another child.
Honour and grace be to our Queen Anne, for whose cause an angel celestial descendeth, the falcon as white as swan, to crown with a diadem imperial. In her honour rejoice we all, for it cometh from God, and not of man. Honour and grace be to our Queen Anne.
Then, At the departing of the queen, said grace, was sung this ballad following.
This white falcon, rare and geeson, this bird shineth so bright. Of all that are, no bird compare may with this falcon white. The virtues all no man mortal of this bird can write. No man earthly enough truly can praise this falcon white. Who will express great gentleness to be in any white, he will not miss but call him this, the gentle falcon white. This gentle bird, as white as curd, shineth both night and day, nor far ne near is any peer unto this falcon white. Of body small, of power regal she is, and sharp of sight. Of courage halt, no manner fault is in this falcon white. In chastity excelleth she most like a virgin bright, and worthy is to live in bliss always this falcon white. But now to take and use her make is time, as troth is plight, that she may bring fruit according for such a falcon white. And where by wrong she hath flewen long, uncertain where to light, herself repose upon the rose now may this falcon white. Whereon to rest and build her nest, God grant her most of might, that England may rejoice alway in this same falcon white.
And we'll pause there. So that's that pageant. I quite like the falcon white. This may bring fruit according. I can't imagine what that might mean.
Well, Anne was pregnant at the time of her coronation, wasn't she?
I can't.
So that the fruitfulness thing makes sense, and the prophecy above that we read above in Latin that she would bear a son is, optimistic from Henry's point of view. I mean, we know that the person she did bear was an extraordinary monarch in any case. But there's these two sort of strands, one praising her for being fruitful, and then in the next verse, it praises her for being chaste and like a virgin. So, which I don't know if Madonna performed at this coronation.
I think she had another gig. I think she was doing something in Paris.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what it's like. Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine that this text, if she was pregnant, that anyone would necessarily know that in this context. That this would just be hope springs eternal. This is the point of the exercise, everybody. But yeah, I particularly like the first child. We've heard this before. To pardon, and in the brief time considering, to esteem our good minds and not the thing. We didn't have much notice to learn this, people. And we've heard that excuse in an epilogue going back several hundred years earlier than this. So this is a very conventional sentiment of we didn't have much time to learn this. So yeah, other thoughts about the children or the falcon? We got some angels. Who crowns the falcon? I don't know how to.
How did they manage a falcon?
I don't know.
I imagine it was an artificially made falcon on a string.
Are there white falcons?
There certainly are leucistic falcons.
It's like it could have been a real bird if they had one in the, because they've got hunting birds and they're well trained and all that sort of thing. So I suppose it's possible.
They're trained, but they're trained to fly to a lure. I suppose you could hang the lure from the bush and hope for the best.
I think this is going to be a giant prop. I'm going to go on that thing because you've got a crown there. The angel descends and crowns the same falcon with a crown imperial. Even if you could do that in front of and I suppose the audience is the queen, not anybody else. Line of sight, it's just not going to work, and you need to have a little strap or something to keep it on the bird's head. I mean, it's just a legit. Look, if someone offered me that gig, okay, you're the angel and you've got to put the crown on the falcon. No, I'm just saying it's not a goer, mate. It's not a goer. You need to get something else in.
You're like one of the horses. You're refusing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just not plausible, mate. Certainly not by the dress. Anyway, Rachel.
I'm not an expert in falconry, but I have. This is going to be terrible. I have been to medieval times, and they tell you when they release that falcon not to raise your hand or any of that stuff because they'll go after it. So if you had somebody before the release of the falcon, if you had them, somebody doing crowd control or something like that to make sure people weren't moving around a ton, or at least not lifting their hands or something, if they had somebody with some sort of shiny bit, maybe that it's on the receiving end and that the person with the crown is what's luring the falcon, that it'll come to the other falconer.
Dove from above, that's what it is. Giant dove from above. I've been here before with giant birds. I'm going with big bird. That's what just turns up. So it just strolls on. The clue, of course, is that whole thing about the what's the line that we had? As white as swan. Maybe it's literally made of swan feathers. Someone spent the whole weekend plucking swans.
Swans are traditionally the property of the monarch, so that would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that is pageant number 3. So that we've got some text for, so it's nice to have that. Next up, we have pageant number 4. This is at the Conduit in Cornhill, and it's sumptuous. That's literally all the description that we got earlier. It was sumptuous. But now we have these texts. So, Rachel, if you once again will narrate, and everybody else play the parts that you have set down.
At the Conduit in Cornhill was exhibited a pageant of the 3 Graces, in which a child, apparelled like a poet, pronounced unto the Queen's Grace these verses.
Queen Anne, behold your servants, the 3 Graces, giving unto your grace faithful assistance with their most goodly, amiable faces. They attend with their continual presence where your grace goeth, absent in your absence, while your grace is here, they also here dwell, about the pleasant brinks of this live well. Now here to be, they thought it their duty, and presently to salute you, gracious Queen, entering this day into our noble city, in such triumphant wise as hath not been seen, which thing to your honour and joy may it be. These 3 sisters thought it their rebuke and shame this day to be slack in honouring their dame.
Then immediately followed the speeches of the 3 Graces, in this wise.
Queen Anne, whom to see this city doth rejoice, we 3 Graces, ladies of all pleasance, clasped hand in hand, as of one mind and voice, with our 3 gifts in all good assurance shall never fail your grace, to endue and enhance. For I, hearty gladness by my name called, shall your heart replenish with joy unfailing.
And I, stable honour, graciously, Queen Anne, joying in your joy with this noble city, and honour and dignity, all that I can, shall you advance. As your grace is most worthy, you to assist I am bound by my duty, for your virtues being incomparable, you cannot but live, I most honourable.
And for the great virtues which I perceive to be in your grace, so high and excellent, by me continual success, you receive long fruition with daily increasement of joy and honour without diminishment, never to decay, but always to arise. All men, women, and children pray the same wise.
And that's the text for the one at the Conduit. We got 3 Graces, hearty gladness, stable honour, and continual success. That's something to cheer you on. And a poet. I love this. A child apparelled like a poet. I assume official poet garb. I don't know. Is that a set you can get from your local supermarket? For children. Just going. Oh yeah. We got him a poet outfit for Halloween this year.
For Halloween, I want to be a sexy poet.
I'm sure there is a specific look for poets, but I don't know. A whiff of pretentiousness. Eric?
Yeah, I was going to say probably just lots of holes in your clothing and people running after you with debts and stuff because you can't pay.
Well, maybe he's apparelled like a Greek poet. Maybe he's got like a toga and a lyre. I know Greek people don't technically call it a toga, that's a Roman thing, but like he's got like a bed sheet and a lyre or something.
Yeah, but if you've got the three graces, how would you differentiate between that and the three graces, you see?
Well, I would leave that to the designer, right? They know more about these things than I do.
Yeah, because it's quite irritating that the description we had earlier just tells us nothing apart from that it's sumptuous. So sumptuous. That's what it looks like. It looks sumptuous. Use your imagination. Okay. Any other thoughts on these cute children and the graces thereof? No. Okay. So we go to pageant number 5. This was at the Little Conduit in Cheapside, and lots of music, goodly harmony of music, other minstrels with singing. There were 5 costly seats, so you're all sitting down. I don't know if it literally means seats, because it could just be mounts where you are placed, so they might not.
or maybe thrones. Or
yeah, I mean it's that sense of place where you would be you would be placed rather than necessarily literal throne seat things. I'm wondering just whether that is. But we've got a ball of gold that gets presented. There's children singing a ballad. And there's verses as the ball is handed over, so I assume that goes with the 4th child coming up. However, we've got a number of speakers: Mercury, Paris, Juno, Pallas, Venus and Paris. Pallas and Paris, obviously different but very similar sounding things. Let's see how this goes. Rachael, read the description in.
At the Little Conduit in Cheapside was exhibited the judgment of Paris, in manner and form following.
Jupiter, this apple unto thee have sent, commanding in this cause to give true judgment.
Jupiter, a strange office hath given me, to judge which is fairest of these ladies 3.
All riches and kingdoms be at my behest. Give me the apple, and thou shalt have the best.
Adjudge it to me, and for a kingdom I shall give thee incomparable wisdom.
Prefer me, and I shall reward thee, Paris, with the fairest lady that on the earth is.
I should break Jupiter's high commandment if I should for meed or reward give judgment. Therefore, Lady Venus, before both these twain your beauty much exceeding, by my sentence shall win and have this apple. Yet, to be plain, here is the 4th lady now in presence, most worthy to have it, of due congruence, as peerless in riches, wit, and beauty, which are but sundry qualities in you 3. But for her worthiness, this apple of gold is too simple a reward 1,000-fold.
The conclusion of this pageant pronounced by a child.
No, another reward there is ordained for the worthiness of her grace, and not to be disposed by you, Paris, nor to be given here in this place. Queen Anne, most excellent that ever was, for you is ready a crown imperial, to your joy, honour, and glory immortal. God, that of his goodness all things doth ascend, hath sent us your grace, our hearts to make glad. Wherefore with as much humbleness we intend your noble grace to serve as ever queen had. For nothing there is that may now make us sad, having your noble grace, our refuge and rest, provided by him that knoweth what is best. All joy, wealthy, and honour, with long space of life, be to your grace, with succession royal. And he that hath power of all prerogative, the most blessed Trinity, God eternal, save our King Henry in his estate royal. Thus pray all the citizens, wife, child, and man, God save King Henry and his spouse, Queen Anne.
At the parting of the Queen's said grace was sung this ballad following.
And that's Desna. Closing ballad.
Beg your pardon. Queen Anne so gent of high descent, and excellent in nobleness. Of ladies all you principal should win this ball of worthiness. Passing beauty and chastity with high degree and great riches, so coupled be in unity that chief are ye in worthiness. When Jupiter his messenger sent down hither, he knew certes that you victrice of all ladies should have the price of worthiness. And wise Paris made judge in this, anon I wis, most high princess, well understood your virtues good, your noble blood and worthiness. Your dignity, when he gan see the ladies three, Queen Anne peerless, he bade give place unto your grace, as meet it was in worthiness. The golden ball of price but small have Venus shall the fair goddess, because it was too low and base for your good grace and worthiness.
Okay, I have lots of thoughts about this one. So, yes, much is made of George Peele's version of the Raiment of Paris. At the end of the play, they turn to the Queen and say, "You should have the golden apple." It's not even, it's been done. It's already been done. It's been done here, and actually more effectively here, because upon the handing over of the golden apple, somebody else comes on and says, "No, wait, here's what you could have won. You can have the crown as well." And it's doing something really, for something that's so short. I mean, it ties everything up quite very, very quickly. There's a little narrative story. This is actually very satisfying. I really like this. I mean, it's subtle as a brick, but you principal should win this ball of worthiness. I love the lyrics to the ballad. I really enjoyed that one. In quite a genuine way, rather than just, oh, this is quite interesting. That's a little thing. Beginning, middle, and end. Eric.
I was quite amused by the line about sort of, we could give it to you, but actually it's going to go to Venus because, okay, she's a goddess, but like you deserve more, you deserve better, kind of thing.
I think, to be fair, she still gets the gold. I don't think she walks away empty-handed. She just gets.
They're not going to make her carry a stage prop all the way to her coronation from there.
It might not be a prop. It might be a genuine.
Gold is really heavy.
Well, I don't think it's solid gold.
It's hard to cast a ball.
Anyway, Rachael.
I was just gonna say that there's a lot of irony, something weirdly foreshadowing about this, that she gets the apple of discord from Eris, and that I don't think that what do you call it? Like how there's that Arachne who got turned into a spider by Athena for thinking she could outcompete her, and she's just beat Juno, Venus, and Pallas. But there must be some hit they took out on her for her hubris.
Mm. Eric.
Yeah, for the little like round ball / apple, I keep picturing the thing that they use as a bomb in the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is to kill the rabbit.
The holy hand grenade.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what they were going for, Eric. Yeah, absolutely. So that's most of the general detail that we get. I say there are some Latin texts that also exist, but life is a little too short until we actually sort of get some translations and actually find the text. I don't actually have physical copies of those. To get a fuller sense of some of the pageants that are going on here. You never do get the full sense of all the pageants because they just don't record the data. We just don't have it. But we've got a lot more there. We got 3 pageants in reasonable detail, and frankly, as far as civic pageantry goes, that's a win. Actually, I'll take 3. I'll take 3. 2 of them's got quite silly songs, and there's a giant bird. What a great falcon. So yeah, that's that as a first little saunter through. That has potential. I'm liking that. I think there's a little show in that. Angela.
Well, I'm just thinking this is incredible. I mean, the cost of this is phenomenal, isn't it? And this is Anne going around, and there's all these cloths and all that sort of thing, and then he goes and does it again another 4 times. Mm. So you just think, did they all get one of these? Because it does seem really quite extraordinary, doesn't it?
I haven't. We don't have texts for any other coronation things until Elizabeth. That doesn't mean there aren't accounts, so we might know how much everything cost. I would be very surprised if we don't know how much everything cost and have outline ideas of the things that are in them. But unfortunately, we don't have any more texts at this time, I don't think. I will just double check my notes on that. But yeah, it's these things cost a lot of money, and you can almost hear the city groaning at the letter coming in from the king going, "Oh, we've got to go and stump up all this cash. Okay, send the boys round. Come on, give us your stumpy. Let's get that money in." So yeah. So final thoughts in the room. I mean, we've got comparisons for those who've been here for earlier civic pageantry, sometimes earlier, literally earlier in terms of stuff that was from medieval times, and of course lots of later civic pageantry of which this sort of semi-ties into. I mean, on Angela's point, some of this stuff might be recycled from other gigs. I mean, I don't think it's all brand new, so there is an interesting question about it. With the Lord Mayor's shows, we spent a reasonable amount of time trying to figure out what the basic floats sort of were, what the basic scaffolds looked like, that there was possibly stock shapes, and maybe even now there are stock bits of furniture that you could make a mountain for Parnassus, and there's a stock castle that maybe is knocking about. So it's an interesting question of how much of this is specifically made for this and how much of this might be just pulled out of a barn somewhere that they keep to hand, because there are Lord Mayor's shows around this time. We just don't really have any. And there are much more. You've got different watches happening at different times of the year as well, where there's an awful lot of music and festivities and stuff going on. So the city's busy. The city's doing this stuff a lot. Anyway, Greg, you've been here for quite a few of these civic-y things. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, yes, the rhyming was awful and painful at times, but it has to be for this sort of thing. It wasn't. I don't know if there was anything that particularly stood out generally, but I'm very, very glad I'd done everything that we've done before this, because actually suddenly things make more sense. So the idea of the boats on the river, we've seen that described in the Lord Mayor's pageants. The fact that Mount Parnassus appears, whatever. The fact that not just, and also where they were. I mean, I can't remember if it was the Little or the Great Conduit where we were near when we were on Cheapside that wonderful day last year, but we've seen these places, at least the positions they were, and it's great to see them again, hear them much loved. Yeah, they're really good, really interesting.
Yeah, because Eric, I think, has just double-checked the royal entry that we did a year, 2 years ago, quite a long time ago. Anyway, which is much earlier than this, which seems mostly to follow a similar kind of route, though they don't go via river or come out of the tower. They cross London Bridge for that. But within the city itself, there's the route is not dissimilar. Eric, do you have any final thoughts?
I was just typing in the chat that I think history-wise, the other one was about 100 years, a century before the one that we've just done. So that's interesting to see how things change over time. So maybe we should just find the next one in 100 years from. Wait, no, that doesn't work. I don't know. It's interesting.
About 30.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them like sort of doing the same stuff over and over, kind of. And I was actually wondering what Angela was wondering earlier about, sort of, did he do this for every single wife he took? I don't know. But also, yeah, some stuff I'm just tempted to sort of go, yeah, we should totally just reenact this to see what happens. I mean, in real time, not like on Zoom.
Well, I have to. I'm
including
definitely
making 6,000 nights the weekend before.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that there's definitely good grist for the mill for the podcast. I think an audio version covering this pageant, zooming in and out of the stuff that we have and skipping over the stuff that we don't, is very, very plausible. I think there's a lot there, and I say I really like that little Judgment of Paris. I enjoyed that very much. Desna, you've not been here for any of those past things. Any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm a newbie to these civic pageants, but I thought it was just fascinating, really interesting. I know that Greg found the rhyming a bit painful at times, but I found it quite, what's the word? I want to say charming, because I know that there's things that have got to be said and they've got to be shoehorned into a rhyme somehow, and I can imagine how whoever's written it has gone round and round going, oh, how do we get that to rhyme with that, and how do we say that? So I kind of thought some of that, even if it was a bit painful, was quite sweet.
Yeah, and it's performed by children, and the most of it, and so yeah, I forgive the verse a lot. For what?
It's got school panto vibes occasionally, which I quite like.
Liza, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we found out in October was that there's a very good reason for using child actors for these, which is that their voices carry more clearly and incisively than many adult voices do, especially over the murmur of a crowd. Looking at the two ballads, they've both got a unifying, what's called a tail rhyme, but a rhyme that's the same throughout going through them. And that's kind of nice, poetically. Yeah, just all in all, it's quite competently written, no excess floral verbiage, or verbal flora. It's... if you want to get your queen on the throne with some entertainment but not have to stand around too long, hire Nicholas Udall. Available for parties.
Yeah, he's available for a lot of stuff. Have we done that one? Oh, that's one we might not have done. Can't remember. Edward VI royal entry. Did we do an Edward VI? I can't remember.
I thought we did as part of a night. I've got a vague memory of Edward VI, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, I'm just. We should have done it, but I don't actually know off the top of my head whether we actually did. Making a note just to double check that. So I'm just talking my way through my spreadsheet. Rachael, any final thoughts?
I don't really have any besides that. I just like civic pageantry, and this was nice just to see Queen Anne or Anne Boleyn, because we've done so much stuff with Elizabeth, and we have in the one that we're doing in the afternoons, the people are just saying all their praises of Queen Elizabeth, and I really enjoy the history of this one.
Angela, any final thoughts?
Well, it really struck me that, the simplicity, I think Desna's right, the charm of this. It was charming. I'm not sure how short it was because there was a lot of music as you went along. So it clearly took a whole day. But I wonder if the simplicity of it was because Anne was being crowned, not Henry. So if it had been Henry, there'd have been all the verbiage. There'd have been all your flora verbiage. Whereas because it was Anne, it was just really kept incredibly simple and charming and childlike. They were lovely, those songs. It really was very simple. The speeches were very simple for a child. So I think I've not seen one of those pageants where it was as engaging as this, apart from the one actually that John Taylor did, which was very, very kind of like simple, very much speaking to ordinary people. So I thought it was great, and I loved all the kind of like really quite a lot of detail about what things looked like and moving around and all that. It was brilliant, actually.
Yeah. I haven't found any notes of any details of any other coronations of Henry's queens. I say the next one I found is Edward VI, royal entry into London around about when his accession, and I don't think we've done it. And so there is a text, not a lot of text, but there is a text. So that's one for me to rustle up at some future point going forward. Anyone I haven't done a final thought on? I think we've covered the room. So as ever with these, this is just us stumbling around in the dark with some texts, because they are very border around the stuff that we do. There's a lot more negotiation with history, which isn't our primary aim. Our primary aim is to look for performable text, stuff that we can do and make come alive. And this area is a lot more crossovery. And so if you have any thoughts or some things, do pop us a line. You can email us at admin@beyondshakespeare.org, or you can just put a comment in the YouTube video, or you can support the work we do by becoming a patron, patreon.com/Beyond Shakespeare, or you can even bung us a coffee at ko-fi.com/Beyond Shakespeare, or you can just generally go to our website and like or follow us on Twitter at Beyond Shakes and like what we do. You can leave us a review. Apparently, you can do that on the podcast. There's a podcast that accompanies these videos. The podcast is where the full cast audio adaptations live. Where the good meaty stuff is, as opposed to the this kind of first look stuff that we do mostly on the YouTube. So if you're interested in any or all of those things, do follow us, follow the links in the show notes and get to know us. All that remains, you can even join us. These groups, sign up. Anyone can sign up. It's on the website. Just fill in the form, sign up, and come read with us. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. You, Principal, should win this ball.